Hey, what's up, New Zealand and the world? Lucas Lawman's Kiwi Voice. Thanks for taking the time to hang out with us once again as we take a deep dive into some upcoming New Zealand legislation. One piece of legislation that I think does not get enough coverage in the mainstream media as we speak today. Now let's take a little bit of a reflective look to put things into context here before we dive straight in. We've got a lot to get through. Over the last couple of years, there has been a lot of theories. Now, a lot of people will say conspiracy theories. I just say theories because there is utter legitimacy to them around what the vaccine passport, vaccination certificate, contact tracing, all of that surveillance stuff that's been used in the name of fighting off the dreaded COVID pandemic, whether this was going to be used in the future or whether it could be used for anything in the future. Part of that theory and why people are diving further into this information is the Digital Identity Services Trust Framework Bill. Yep, it's a mouthful. Let's go with it again. Digital Identity Services Trust Framework Bill. So it's a piece of legislation that is currently being debated in Parliament. We've broken it down. Thanks go out to the other half of Kiwi Voice, Jen Wright, who's done some amazing work reading through all 60 pages of this beast and providing me with the notes to go through and present this information to you guys. So as I say, there's been a lot of chatter about this, so we decided to pick it apart and see what the fuss was all about. Let's start with what the bill proposes to do. 1. The bill establishes a legal framework for the provision of secure and trusted digital identity services for individuals and organisations. So, everyday Kiwis like you and me and the businesses and organisations that we engage with. So how does this affect Kiwis? Well, if you have a digital identity, which most of us do, whether it be with Google, online shopping, or even our GPs nowadays with My Health, the bill puts in place a set of rules as to how companies manage your digital identity. It's like an amped up version of the terms and conditions that we never read before we tick the box and have our credit card stored on file with any number of online outfits such as Amazon, TradeMe, Uber Eats, any of that kind of stuff. So how does it work? Well, businesses and organisations can apply to the TF. Now this is a key one, TF. Remember that one, we'll refer to it a lot as we go forward, and that is the Trust Framework Authority, to become an accredited provider, which, if accepted, means they must follow all the rules set out when in this bill, when collecting, storing and sharing your digitally sourced information or your digital identity. Why would they apply to be credited, you might ask? So why would a business want to be involved in this? Well, if you want the government seal of accreditation that says you are approved by them under the rules in this bill to be trustworthy with our digital identities, then you must apply. So that's where the concern is for this one. It's another layer of bureaucracy over the top, which we'll cover in a bit more detail, that you essentially have to be part of by government mandate. But as an aside to that, this is an opt-in system, they say, but one may ask, for how long, of course. But looking at it from the outside in, as a business owner, how could you not opt in to get that seal of approval? A lot of people may well be turned away. This current Labour government said vaccines would be an opt-out situation, and look where that ended up. And if businesses don't apply, they won't get the seal of approval. My question is, do they really needed it? We've trusted our businesses so far already. What makes anything different now? So what is the TF Authority all about? This is the key part. This is the body that will establish, administer and maintain the accreditation program, a register of accredited providers, procedures and tests to demonstrate compliance, monitor performance and investigate breaches and complaints. So it's a regulatory body. This body will work under a department nominated by the Prime Minister and is the responsibility of the Chief Executive of the Office of the Prime Minister. The Chief Executive will appoint members to this body. They can be public servants or people from outside the public service, and they will be all remunerated. So more well-paid, bureaucratic jobs to be created. Then there will also be a TF board. The Prime Minister will decide which department the board functions under, and it will be accountable to that department's chief executive. Again, the chief executive, who may be the same as the TF Authority chief executive, appoints the board members. This is sounding fairly layered. They will review and make recommendations to the rules, monitor the effectiveness, and undertake education and guidance on the Trust Framework Bill. Again, they will be remunerated. Noticing a bit of a theme here? It's important to note here that on this board, only public servants will have voting rights on the board. Now, why is that important? Well, if the Prime Minister picks the Trust Framework Authority Chief Executive and he picks the body members and then picks the Trust Framework Board members, it's likely to be a heavily leaning group of appointees towards the current government of the day. Is there democracy involved in that, considering how much control they're going to have over the ability for you to use your digital identity? These appointees will vote on the recommendations which go before the Minister in charge of the Trust Framework Bill, who was also appointed by the Prime Minister, and decide if the recommendations are to be put in place. Now, for sure, it's appointed by the Prime Minister of the day, so this bill goes into law and this framework comes into fruition, then National wins the next election. Here we are, it's going to be appointed by them. I'm sure they can clean house and away we go. So you could look at it in that direction, but it's still concerning that it's so directly appointed when it's related to your own personal digital identity. So who sits on this Trust Framework Board? Firstly, there is no stipulation to how many people will be on the board. We know this current Labour government has already increased its public service numbers or public servants numbers by thousands and thousands. So who knows how many more taxpayers will fund for this board. The board must consist of people with expert knowledge of te ao Māori approaches to identity, have expert knowledge in te tiriti o Waitangi, and alongside these first listed skills, have expertise in digital information ethics, privacy, and handling. So we have a Trust Framework Authority and a Trust Framework Board. Sounds like enough people for the job, but are not according to the makers of this bill. There's more to come, more layers. Next comes the appointment of a Māori advisory group who will advise the Trust Framework Board on Māori interests and knowledge. Hang on. Didn't the Trust Framework Board have to have members who are already experts in te ao Māori and te tiriti o Waitangi? The Trust Framework Board may also establish committees to give advice and make reports to the board. What kind of advice and what kind of reports, you might ask? Well, the board may invite submissions from the Privacy Commissioner, people or groups with expert knowledge of te ao Māori, Trust Framework providers, and any other individual or organisation they think should be consulted. However, after consulting the ministers with portfolios that relate to Māori development and Māori Crown relations, the minister will decide on who is relevant to contract for advice and reports, depending on the type of recommendation being made. If I was to be so cynical and look at what's happening with Three Waters and the mental health situation and providers being contracted there, we may get some nepotism a la Nanaya Mahuta's brother. Another important thing to note is that all of these, however many people employed or contracted under this bill, all have immunity from liability in civil proceedings. That's right. Let's hope they don't make a mistake with your digital identity. Also, Trust Framework providers accredited under this bill have immunity from liability in civil proceedings for causing harm or damage to you, unless it was done by gross negligence, which would be pretty difficult if they are following the rules. Well, it should be. Thankfully, there'll be a register of Trust Framework accredited people and organisations that you can search to check they have a gold star. They are accredited. It's a different story for individuals or organisations, though. If they apply to be accredited, and throughout the process fail to give updates or changes to key information, they can be fined up to 10 grand for an individual or 20 grand for an organisation. That's enough to make you want to get the job done correctly, you would think. It's a shame that the AT Authority, AT Board, Māori Advisory Committee and anyone else with contracted involvement in this bill do not have the same motivations. So let's backtrack to the purpose of this bill for a moment: to provide secure and trusted digital services for individuals, businesses and organisations. I'll read that again. To provide secure and trusted digital services for individuals, businesses and organisations. These government accredited services that will hold our digital information or identities have to follow the rules in the framework, determining the accuracy of the information, making sure it's bound to the correct individual or organisation and can be rescued securely, maintain privacy and confidentiality, and protect the information. Of course, that would think is the key one. So nothing out of the ordinary in this set, but all currently upheld under the current Privacy Act. So why the need for something else? So again, I'm not sure why we need this particular piece of legislation and these additional layers of bureaucracy. There are more points to this bill, however, they are more about how to apply for accreditation, how to complain, how to handle complaints, review processes, etc. To summarise, I would say it's a bill that isn't needed, looks to spend many hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars, or millions most likely, to implement and maintain, has that same lean towards co-governance that the Three Waters bill has, and was never in the Labour manifesto in 2020. Perhaps giving Kiwis the housing, mental health improvements, infrastructure, and all the other things promised during their campaign is where this government's focus should be. So a lot to take in there, I know. Jump in the comments below if you're looking to get the conversation going. If there's anything that I've missed, anything that you would like further information about, we'll try and keep things as open as possible, as we always do on Kiwi Voice. Share these links around. If you've loved the work that we've done here, chuck us a donation our way through the stars system there on Facebook, or of course at yourkiwivoice.co.nz/contribute, and we will continue to bring you explainers, news, interviews and coverage as we have to this point. Thanks once again everyone, really appreciate you taking the time to hear me waffle on about the Digital Identity Services Trust Framework Bill. Stay safe, stay free, and we'll see you again real soon.